Hey guys, so today I want to make a prediction. And I want to make this prediction before we get to BlizzCon and all that. I made this kind of same prediction when Alex Straza got her Lifebinder changed, and I said Lifebinder might be the new thing. And I thought it was really strong. A lot of people were like, no, Lifebinder's still bad, the other one's still good. And we saw Lifebinder start getting a lot of play in pro play, as well as its win rate shot up in regular as well. So I wanted to share a little bit about where I think Blaze is going to end up. As they nerfed his mana cost and they nerfed his bunker, he's struggling in the solo lane, because what he used to do is you just kind of hold on against just about anyone, and then when you got into later games, you would just, or later fights, you would pretty much just drop down a bunker, give armor to your team, and you'd be good. You could usually drop bunker 2 times a team fight. But after they've nerfed bunker several times, you can't really drop down bunker multiple times in a team fight. Now you can only really drop it once, and it's not as good as it used to be. At the same time, they've buffed Combustion in 3 different patches now, which I've always said that Combustion is a decent ultimate ability that is just outshined by bunker. Well, now that they've not only buffed Combustion, but also nerfed bunker, I think that Combustion's actually pretty good. And with that being said, they've also increased the health of Blaze, lowered his, or made his mana costs higher, so he struggles a little bit more in the solo lane because he can't just keep using all of his abilities to keep him healed up. But he is a little bit tankier when it comes to team fights, making him just a little bit scarier than he was before. All of that being said, I think that main tank Blaze is the new Blaze, and I think that while Bunker's still going to be used by the pros, I am thinking that Combustion might start seeing some play. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Let's see if we can get up to level 10, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think this is such a powerful tool, and why he's a pretty decent hero. So the first thing to know about the weakness for Blaze is Blaze's only escape is jet propulsion, as we know. So a good flip by a Diablo and a push, followed by some body block, could make it to where Blaze is pretty much done for. However, Blaze does have some things going for him, which not a lot of other people do. He has a long-range slow ability. He has wave clear, making him kind of like in the same spot as Joanna is if you want to double soak. But with his long-range slow, it allows him to not only zone for objectives, but it allows him to set up for team fights, as well as allows him to peel pretty well off of his backline by simply using large slows that his backline can get away. He also has a few other things going for him, as he has his own unstoppable that he can get at a decent pace by just getting his new habits finished. That's a 2-second unstoppable. It's a longer cooldown than most of the other tank unstoppables that they have, like Joanna's trait or like Garrosh's level 4 talent. However, it's still a pretty decent unstoppable that can have its cooldown lowered by if you land your flame string on people. The next thing that he has that's kind of beneficial for him is the fact that he can counter just about any team comp. Level 13, he can get things that lowers the attack speed of enemy heroes by a pretty large amount. So against a Hammer, you could lower her damage by 50%. Or against a Zul'jin, you can lower his damage by 50%. Against someone that's like a high mage composition, you can lower their damage by up to 40% with level 13 talents. Or at level 16, you can pretty much heal back a lot of the damage that they deal to you by utilizing Juggernaut plating. If they go heavy melee, you can lower their damage by 30% with Meltdown, followed by healing yourself by 75% of the damage your trait's doing, giving him the capabilities of countering multiple team comps. One of my favorite reasons why I love Blaze as a main tank is what I just did there. I used my W first so that they were too slow to get away from my E, and they couldn't dodge my E because they were pretty much too slow moving in any different direction. Then I use my E to do a giant stun onto a variety of people, and oftentimes I'll save one extra W to toss a W after the slow is over so we can finish off the kills. In this case, I didn't have the extra W, but that doesn't really stop the fact that we're still able to kill the Alarok. We lose 2 people, but not a big deal because we are still able to win this objective. You see what I was talking about? This long-range zoning tool that Blaze has. I don't have a lot of mana, but you can see the amount of slow we're adding to this Diablo. It makes it almost impossible for him to get close enough to be able to stop us from getting this objective. All of these things really, to me, make Blaze a very powerful main tank, and he's someone that can do quite a lot. In this case, I'm just trying to go for appeal. I don't really care too much about... I don't have enough mana to really do anything other than appeal. You can see how these giant zones are really stopping the enemies from trying to get anywhere. We're going to fast forward. I will explain the build a little bit. The level 1 and the level 7, there is no situation where you don't go those. New habits, you need that unstoppable as a main tank. Plus, the extra trait damage is nice when you're really in the middle of the fight. And as well as the trait also gives you 25 armor, so you definitely want to focus on that. Crossfire is the next thing that I like. And the main reason why is because you don't want to be lighting your oil on fire, and both of these thrive in lighting your oil on fire. Crossfire, instead, you can use that before you use your W, making it to where you can get extra damage off, or it could be a nice finisher, as you can do quite a lot of burst damage as a tank. Just to give you an idea of how much damage you can do this 114 damage twice, plus an extra 190 damage. So let's just say, for instance, the 190 plus the 114, you're at about 304. Then you add an extra 114, you're at about 400 and, I don't know, 418, right? So with 418 damage, that is a pretty good finisher for a tank to have, and just not bad in general. The other reason why I really like Blaze as maybe a hero you can maybe carry with as a tank is because you have so much wave clear. You're able to get so much potential out of different objectives purely because you can double soak as a tank, and you still have one of the best engages. So while Joanna has a really powerful wave clear and really powerful kit, the Blaze, he's less survivable than a Joanna, but he still has the same wave clear, and he has a much better engage than the Joanna. And he has better engages earlier. While Joanna kind of needs her ult to be able to engage, we have Blaze who doesn't need his ult. You've seen how many engages I've already set up for my team. As you can see in terms of the assists, I have assisted in 100% of our kills. And a lot of them are pretty simple, of me simply doing a W to slow them, an E to stun them, followed by anything else that I need. The next thing that I try to do on Blaze is finish off my quest before I use my Combustion. We all know that Combustion deals more damage the longer you've been channeling it, as well as the movement speed. It lasts based off of how long you've been channeling it, if I'm correct on that. I might be wrong. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that Combustion lasts as long as possible, and they have a lot of people who can interrupt my Combustion. I mean, almost every single person on their team, with the exception of Mephisto, can interrupt my Combustion. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to finish my quest so that I have an Unstoppable that I can trigger on myself without needing to worry about anyone else using an Unstoppable on me. Then the combo that I use to carry, or to at least set up fights as Blaze, is I set up a W first on a target that I want to jump to. The W then makes it to where I can always land my E. From the time that I land my E on someone, I like to immediately pop my trait, which puts me as unstoppable. Then I like to use Combustion, which is going to channel as long as possible. When my unstoppable's over, I will pop my Combustion, making it to where I can do a lot of damage to the enemies, and they are also going to be slowed for a good amount of time. To give kind of an idea of how this is going to work, I go for the slow first, and then I immediately go for the stun, which then I stunned one person. I'm then using my trait, which then my trait stops me from being interrupted by the sleep dart, which was immediately used afterwards, as my trait is making me unstoppable. As my unstoppable ends, you can see that I finish off by popping my my Combustion, and now you see all this damage that's being done. Just to give you kind of a quick idea, I was probably at about 11,000 before that fight started. Now watch my damage quickly move up extremely fast. And that's the power of Combustion. I did 2,000 damage over that Combustion. So it gives you a quick idea of how powerful a Blaze Engage actually can be. Now, despite all of that, he still has his capabilities of sitting on his own fire, just healing off of it, and still being a little scary, but generally we didn't end up winning that fight. But that doesn't mean we're not going to win the game, and it still kind of shows you what we can do with Blaze. And I'm not going to let that fight determine everything, because it was a very good fight. We just, we sat in a lightning breath. I mean, you know. So once again, I've got my Pyromania back up. We're going to channel this back, and we're back into what we want to be doing. So the first thing I do, toss out a slow. I got slept, but I wanted to get ready to charge him in after I get my slow. Waiting until my team's ready, so I'm just kind of zoning with my W's, which is why I love his W's, is they're so versatile. You can either use them defensively, offensively, or however you want to. Once again, I use a slow, kind of slow their backline from their front line, and then I'm going to go for a stun. Instead, I just go straight for a combustion. Once again, we're going to look at my damage for a second. I'm at 15,000, and watch my damage just launch up very, very quickly. I was at 15,000, now I'm at 18,000. I did 3,000 damage that fight with combustion, a couple auto attacks, and probably a Q or two. I then use my W to slow down the Ana, followed by getting some quick damage off on Ana, saving my stun until later. I do miss my stun because I'm terrible Blaze. And then the other thing that's great is how long range this is. Do you see how far away I was? And I can still help my team get this kill because I do a slow in the only direction that she can escape, and I don't even need to be here anymore. I could go up and start channeling on that if I want to. But I go for the stun, and we make sure that we get that kill quickly so that we can all work together and get this objective. These are all the things that I love about Blaze. Again, he's not as tanky as a lot of the other main tanks. I like thinking of him a little bit like ETC, where if he gets his combo off perfectly, like you get a perfect mosh, it's game over. You get a perfect setup into a combustion, it's game over. And it's kind of the same thing about ETC, is he's squishy like ETC. I think he's in general a little bit tankier than ETC because he's got the armor, the self-healing. Plus, you can lower the damage later. In this case, you're going to start seeing, after level 13, I have Suppression Fire. So you're going to start seeing me use my Q onto people like Mephisto quite often, trying to make sure that Mephisto can't finish off anyone. I see that my team's struggling down at bot lane, so I go for the double soak. I'm just going to fast forward through a decent chunk of this. Team wants to go for a boss. We do have a Hanzo, so it shouldn't take too long. I don't know what we're doing. This is the worst boss bait. Sorry, guys. I completely forgot what we did this game. Alright, so this is what I love. So they started off by engaging in on us, and I did 2 Ws, one in a wide area and one in a long area. The wide area makes it to where the only areas that they can get through is this little cluster in here, otherwise they're going to be slowed, and it's going to be impossible for them to go in on us. The next thing that I did was I did the long area to make sure that if we wanted to go in, they only could get out through this cluster and it'd be easy for me to stun. Either way, we're pretty much set up in this team fight if we want to go for it, as the enemies are pretty split. So I go for the stun, I go for the unstoppable, I go for the combustion. Now, this time I'm not going to show the damage. I'm just going to show you the damage over time that shows up on Tyrande. She might have a healing over time, actually. Or it might just not be set up in the replay. Normally when I combustion, I see everyone's health bars go brown, and I'm not seeing anyone's health bars go brown. Either way, you can see the amount of damage that I do once again. I was at like 21,000, decent chunk. But I want to get out of this, and I don't want to show that anymore. I want to show you guys what I do this team fight. So I go back for another stun, we kill this person, and I go for a Q and then a W. The Q is to get the damage off. The W is to make sure that I do the Q after, because I don't like lighting it on fire until I like have to. Let me finish off that person as well. I made sure to keep using the Q on the Alarak that fight because I wanted to lower his damage. Because if you can lower the Alarak's damage by 40%, he's not bursting anyone. Once again, the great part about Blaze, you can just toss out your W's pretty far away. We don't really need to there because the Deckard gets the kills. We then get the boss safely this time. I'm going to fast forward through a decent chunk of this. We get the boss, and we have 16s on the enemies now. You can see our kills are definitely higher. And again, that's not really that related. The main thing that I wanted to focus on, and that's another thing, that if you're playing Blaze, you don't need to light your oil on fire to get wave clear. Sometimes what you'll see me start doing is, when all the minions are in a row, I'll use my flame stream with the bonus damage of crossfire, and it almost kills the entire wave, and then I'll just simply use my auto attacks to finish it off. This saves me a lot of mana from not having to use that 50 mana on oil spill. So if I'm ever clearing things alone, I won't do that. Once again, we start covering the objective, and the first thing I do, I focus on zoning. Toss out quick W's. I try not to overlap them. I make sure that it's one after another. And then I go in. I use my ults, and easy kills. Most of that was purely the... This is what I love about this too. So, to give you an idea, we have this Hanzo who's at 162 health right now. Right? 162 health. So what do? We stun. It's not too bad. Now it goes on a full 2 minute cooldown, and we finish him off with what we've got. So, I mean, if I wasn't Blaze, if I was Joanna, or if I was someone else, I could have still interrupted, so that's not really a Blaze thing. I could have just used my Q to lower the damage of it, but we've only lowered the damage by 40%. I think that still would have killed the Hanzo. But it is still something that I've done a lot, where I'll use a Q onto someone like a Mephisto, lower all of his damage. Now, at level 16, I went with Juggernaut Plating, and I'll be completely honest, this game, I use this terribly. But the reason why Juggernaut Plating's so cool is because you activate a spell shield, and you gain 50% of the 50% spell reduction from anything that hits you. Then you heal for 125% of that, meaning that you essentially use your Juggernaut Plating, and of all the spell damage you take, you gain all of that life back. And it's only when it expires, so it's at the very end of it, and it is a very powerful tool against multiple spell damage dealers, because they literally will be healing you. Because half of the damage is gone, half of the damage gets healed back, plus an extra 25%. So you're actually going to get healed more than the damage you took in terms of spell damage. And it's only on a 40-second cooldown. So if you pick Blaze and a double mage, not only can you use the suppressive fire to reduce the damage that they do to your allies, but you can also simply just out-tank all of it. So say you're against a Li Ming, and you just want to tank the orbs for your team, you can tank all of it if you want to. It's just really, really easy. So you'll see me do this a lot, where I simply just use my Q on as many mages as possible. In this particular case, I try to go for the Q that goes through the Mephisto and hits the Diablo, lowering the damage of the Lightning Breath as well. Oh, in this case, I missed the Diablo completely. My trait's on cooldown, but I still will probably pop my ult here. I'm not really sure. Yeah, there's my ult. And a lot of damage, a lot of slows goes into the Diablo as well as the Ana. And we just go for the game, I believe. I think I might die here. I don't remember. Either way, guys, that is Blaze. So once again, I want to show you guys the main combo that makes this entire thing work. So we're going to go into try mode really quick, and I really want to show this because this is so important. If you want to do tank Blaze, you need to practice this combo. And if you can get this combo down, you're in a really, really good spot. So there's two things that I'll show here. The first is I'll show you the how the combo works. I might show you the crossfire thing first. I'm not really sure. Okay. So I like new habits. I like going into oil dispersal. But again, this will change. If they're all melee, I'll go meltdown. Otherwise, and then crossfire here and combustion. You can still go bunker if you want to. This is just something that I have been playing around with, and I really like it. So the first thing that I always do is I toss out a W, and then I charge, and then I trait, and I use my R. This way I can't be interrupted. I try to get on the other side of them, and you can see the huge amount of damage over time that you get. And you can usually follow up with another stun by the time the slow ends, and get a lot of damage. I don't like lighting my oils on fire because it gets people away. So a lot of times what I will do is I'll use a Q first, and then I'll use a W. And this makes it to where they take the damage from the Q, and they're slowed long enough to where you can get multiple auto attacks off while they're slowed. Once again, let's refresh forts, let's remove the ally hero, and let's switch the enemy to someone who's just a little bit more squishy. And let's go to maybe let's go for like an Alexstrasza or something. So the first thing that I want to do, let me refresh forts one more time. I want to show you how to clear waves when you get your level 7. So I wait until the wave shows up in like a straight line, and I use my Q all the way through the entire wave, and then I'll just use my auto attacks to clean it up. That's something that you can definitely do, and it'll save a lot of mana by doing this. But to explain the full combo, I like to sometimes start with a Q, then do a W, and when they're slowed, I'll go into trait. Oh, I didn't have my R up. Let's refresh cooldowns. Hold on. And let's complete the thing. Complete quest. Let's go refresh forts, and we'll toggle cooldowns in a second. Actually, we don't even need to toggle cooldowns. So the full combo is, it's really, really powerful. So once again, I wait until I see someone. I usually start with this. I go for a slow, land that, and then I go for my full combustion if I can. If not, I get off as much as I can. You can see I do about half of the enemy's health by myself as a tank. And this is AoE. You can do this against the entire enemy team, doing half of everyone's health. It's such a huge amount of damage. And you can use this in multiple ways too. Like if you just want to use just your stun. Wow, she's pretty good at sitting in that corner. Anywho, that's pretty much how the combo goes. I'd recommend practicing that in here first. Just start off with a quick slow, stun, trait, R, let it go until your unstoppable's over, and then you can simply just go and deal damage while slowing them consistently. And there are a lot of builds you can do. Again, I personally believe the 14, 13, and 16 are all situational. If you're going against heavy backline, I think Oil Dispersal's a must. Heavy frontline, Meltdown's a must. I think if you're going against heavy auto attackers, the Oil Spill is a must. Heavy mages, Suppressive Fire into Judgment Plating. If they're kind of a hybrid group, I usually go Oil Dispersal into the Jet Fuel and the Charge, just so you get more charges off, more stuns. It's just better in general. But if they do focus on one thing or another, he is really strong for countering their specific things. Let me know if this guide helped you out at all. In general, have you guys tried Combustion since they've made all the changes? Is it something that you think is good? Is it something that you think is bad? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll just show you one more time. Boom. Ult. Full Combustion. And use the crit damage and finish her off. I could even toss in another slow. And another stun. Pop my trait. I mean, I won't have my trait the second time. I had toggle cooldowns on. Yeah, I don't think it's something that you can like 100 to 0. I have 100 to 0'd people with it before, but it's usually people who, like I did it to Azul Jin who burned half his own health, and then I burned the rest of his health, and I slowed his attack speed while he was trying to Taz Dingo. So it's not really something for that, but name me another tank who can do this much damage to the entire enemy team and have this good of an engage, because there's just not too many of them. Diablo Lightning Breath is probably the closest you're going to get. Thank you again for watching. Feel free to check out any of my other videos.